Right, here we go. We are live. I'm joined by Gareth Davies. Gareth, I think it's been about 12 days since our last live, and I'm loving this. I'm loving the fact that you've come on again. I'm grateful, I'm humbled, and once again, it's a pleasure to have you on October Red YouTube.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be on October Red's YouTube. It's listen, it's a once every 12 days
12
incident.
days of Christmas.
The 12 days of Christmas, and then if you want to get me on in another 12 days, which will take us to about the 13th of December, I'm very happy to. And then, of course, for another 12 days, we can do it on Christmas Day. And then if we do it another 12 days, we can do it just as Christmas ends, early in January. And then if we do it 2 more times, probably take us to February the 3rd if Conor Benn and Chris Eubank step into a ring together.
What a place to start. And I think that's where we're going to start. I just want to say good morning to Dan the Man. Dan the Man is heavy on Twitter with the updates. He follows the boxing. So good morning to Dan the Man. But
in
I think that's
15, is he Dan the Man in 15?
There
Where
he is.
Southwark or somewhere?
I don't know. But yes, good morning, Dan. Good morning. But I think that's a good place for us to start. And I'm going to probably, am I all right? Would you mind if I gave my little 20 pence worth into this debate before
Go.
over to yourself? I was at the press conference for Jonas Mayer. I saw lots of people running off on their phones, going into cupboards, whatever. And it was literally all of the media was starting to talk about, okay, the BBFC have said, you know, they've refused to give Conor Benn his license. Now, I'm aware that the source was TalkSport, and albeit BBFC are well within their rights to make that decision, they said they were going to appeal. We always knew that this was a possibility. My argument is, you know, Conor Benn, guilty or not, why on earth is Robert Smith going on to TalkSport to announce that? Rob, there seems to be a lack of professionalism as in regards to procedure. Why hasn't that gone straight via Matchroom? We get an announcement through them. Listen, I'm not saying that they've made a wrong decision, but there's a procedural breach. There's confidentiality issues, and that's what I didn't like.
Well, SE15 is Peckham, by the way, just to clarify that one. Yeah, it's very well put. But I mean, you could say the same of Eddie Hearn using all the outlets to put out his info whenever he wants to do it. You know, he does 15 interviews at a press conference or a media day. I'm not having a go at Eddie Hearn there, but I'm saying it does happen. Obviously, Robert Smith has a relationship with the White and Jordan show. I think he went down there and did one of Simon Jordan's, can't remember the name of the show now, that he does with William Hill. Or it might have been for the Monday Talk Sports show that they record with him and Spencer. And you know, got rather hammered, I think, by Simon Jordan. But they've since become a conduit for Robert Smith perhaps to give his views. And, you know, I've been trying to get a hold of Robert for 2 days, by the way. I'm going to speak to him in the morning. Good. He's in Belfast. I know that. He was travelling to Belfast yesterday. So he and Eddie Hearn will speak over there because obviously Robert's overseeing the Michael Connell and Jordan Gill main event there tomorrow night. But yes, you could make that case, October Reds, that Robert Smith shouldn't have been on there giving his view. But having said that, earlier in the week, stories were put out that the fight had been signed and was going ahead with some caveats on February the 3rd at Spurs. Riyadh Al Samurai in the Mail doing that story. Riyadh has been close to Eddie in the past. Eddie was revealed that he spoke to Riyadh last week. I don't know if that story was being given over by Matchroom to place it out there by Eddie Hearn to say the wheels are in motion for this fight to happen on February the 3rd. Obviously, they brought Conor Benn back in the long grass. When was that now? Was that in October in Florida under the Florida Commission? I think it was October.
Yeah, it was a week before Jordan Thompson's fight. I remember that, against Opataya.
Yeah, so that they've looked. It's been a very, very complex story. This it's been a long time in the making. It was 23rd of September against Rodolfo Orozco, but it was in Florida. It was on a Florida commission license, and Eddie Hearn's problem is he can't go ahead and do it on February the 3rd, October Red, because if he does so, he's got to do it under another commission right now, because Conor hasn't cleared his name. He has in terms of jurisdiction over where the testing process and who takes the testing process, but he hasn't cleared his name in terms of strict liability, in terms of consumption. And I think he should do it because the evidence is out there. It's there if they want it from the WBC, which was done in their hearing. And then, but they can't license him. It's a very important fact. The WBC might have cleared him, but they can't license him. Or they can put him in their rankings, which they have just done. And also, Dr. Human, who I spoke to 2 months back, said there is definitely physical evidence with Conor Benn that it was down to consumption of food and not consumption of any pharmaceutical. Put the evidence out there. Just go and do it. Have that hearing with the Board of Control. That's what they want. That's why they've appealed this decision, and UKAD have appealed the decision. It's been a very fractious process all the way from last August to now.
Gareth, could you just make something clear for me, and please forgive my ignorance. Doping is not my forte, and that is why I kind of take a backseat with it, because I'm ignorant to that side of boxing. Did you mentioned the jurisdiction and UKAD saying, that's fine. Can you just explain that for people like me that don't understand that part? Because to me, UKAD said it was okay for him to fight.
UKAD said it was okay for him to fight.
That jurisdiction bit, that's a bit of a grey area for me. Could you explain that?
UKAD and the board have appealed that decision by Sporting Resolutions, which was the arbitrator, which was the court of arbitration, if you like, over the case. Right. They said, in terms of jurisdiction, that they could not stop him fighting. Yeah, that's in terms because if you go back to the tests, they weren't the official tests of UKAD. He didn't fail the tests with UKAD. It was VADA. He failed the voluntary anti-doping test with VADA, and he failed the WBC test. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. There's a voluntary anti-doping test he failed, and it was the WBC test he failed. They weren't anything to do with UKAD's testing process going into the Chris Eubank fight. The UKAD test that he took, he didn't fail. Okay.
Yep.
But nonetheless, he failed 2 tests which were outside the jurisdiction of UKAD and the Boxing Board of Control. That's where the jurisdiction comes in. So he's won that case in terms of the jurisdiction of the testing process. But what he hasn't done under UKAD rules and Boxing Board of Control rules is the strict liability of having clomiphene in your system. You have to prove why you had clomiphene in your system, and that side of it hasn't been held yet. And that's what UKAD and the Boxing Board of Control are appealing over. And that's why Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn believe that there's an agenda against him from the Boxing Board of Control, and they're unhappy about the fact that it's being taken to that degree. The reason why the Boxing Board of Control want to do that, and UKAD want to do that, is they don't want people to get off in the future just based on jurisdiction. Because if you've got something in your system that appears from another testing authority, they want to be able to investigate it and treat it as it's in your system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I just got all confused.
No, it's very, very complicated. It's been one of the most complicated stories around drugs I've ever seen. A test around testing systems I've ever seen, and it's also been one of the most complicated processes that I've ever seen between fighter, promoter, and the Boxing Board of Control. Never known anything like it. Eddie seemed to press on and have his own agenda when he wanted his own agenda. The Boxing Board of Control seemed to have their own agenda. That they were at loggerheads late last year with Eddie Hearn saying, we waited weeks for the board to come back and give us a decision based on what we told them. They went quiet when they wanted to press ahead with the fight, if you recall. It was cancelled on the Wednesday of fight week with both parties knowing what the situation was. Chris Eubank was going to go ahead with it, if you recall. So it's one of the messiest scenarios around the build-up to a fight I think I've ever seen. But because they didn't work together on it. Conor Benn thought he was being mitigated against by the Boxing Board of Control. He thought there was stuff going back all the way to his father many years ago. I mean, the staff of the board have largely changed. So it's a horrible situation, a horrible mess. And let me just declare, I would like nothing more than Conor Benn, who I really like and have always liked, even though he's not on talking terms with me at the moment, notably through things I've said on Talk Sport or written in the Telegraph or done in interviews or said in interviews, only based on wanting this situation to see it through to its final course, which is if he has to take a ban or a suspension based on strict liability, just do it. Even if he puts that evidence from the WBC and from Dr. Human forward, say, look, here it is. Here's the proof that there is evidence that my body did not contain a pharmaceutical clomiphene. It was based on food consumption. Speculation will be rife forever, but if he does that, he can say he has fully cleared his name based on jurisdiction and strict liability.
Well, then, so all right, then an ideal world is, like you said, with the strict liability. To me, strict liability means, it's black or white. There is no in between. There's not necessarily an appeal process.
No, there is, but with strict liability, you are strictly liable for anything that's in your body. It's as simple as that. You need to prove beyond any doubt that stuff in your body, and you're liable, even if you can prove it, to them suspending you for 2 or 4 years. There are other precedents as well, of course, around it, which they could say, look at what you've gone through. There's your evidence. Look at what you've gone through. We are going to, I'm going to come out of the sun here. We're going to give you a retrospective ban back to the time when you couldn't fight, and you can go ahead and fight whenever you want.
Yeah.
And in my view, that's what they should hasten. Do that case, but the risk is that he could be banned for 2 years, even based on the evidence that he has, which would take him to August this year. And my feeling is, if Eddie Hearn wants to press ahead, sorry to be strong about this, if Eddie Hearn wants to press ahead and wants the fight on February the 3rd, they will have to do it under the jurisdiction of a different Boxing Board of Control.
Do you think that the BBFC, and I'm not saying that they're right or wrong for this, because I get it, there has to be examples, like you said, so these things don't happen again. Do you believe that they're setting an example with Conor Benn, therefore leading maybe Team Benn to think that they are being unjustly targeted?
Maybe, but I just think they're doing what they need to do in terms of their own due diligence, because if someone else... that what they can't do, I think, in their eyes, is just allow jurisdiction to be the only answer. They need to do strict liability on it, because clomiphene has shown up in the system twice, and it's a banned substance. So they're just going through their due processes. I don't think either side has really cooperated. I do think they've been at loggerheads. I think there's been a tripartite loggerhead with these three, with Eddie Hearn at times in the board, with Conor Benn in the board, and with the board... and both of them as Conor Benn's legal team and all those things. It hasn't been a clever process. I say clever. It hasn't been a clean process, if you like. And I think it, as I say, I have not experienced anything quite like this in terms of one of these cases in the entire time that I've been involved in boxing. It's clearly the messiest case we've ever seen. And I feel sorry for Conor, because I feel like, I've experienced not speaking to him for a year. you know, based on, you know, I mean, it's well documented. So I went up to interview with him with a Talk Sport microphone,
I was there.
and he, you know, he popped
I
the
was there.
microphone. Oh, you were there, yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, that's not a situation I want to be in. I don't want to be part of the story. But I have spoken to him. I spoke to him one night at the O2 Arena, and he did say to me then he feels that he's been punished. He's been punished deliberately by the board, that they've got it in for him, that they had it in for him all along. But I just think it's the way the case has been handled. And maybe he has had a tougher time than a lot of other people. But I think decisions along the way have produced that for him as well.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to agree because it has been messy because there's been a lack of continuity. You had the WBC basically saying, "Look, it's probably from the food," and he was saying, "No, I'm telling you, it's not in my
Well, that
system."
didn't make sense, did it, at the
And
time?
it was,
Like,
and
hello.
there's a lot of conflicting
Yeah,
information, and you've got the
yeah.
lack of cooperation. So,
Yeah.
and then it sort of like balloons, and I mean, gets people like me talking about drugs. Like I said, this is not my forte. I do not understand the doping procedures. Somebody commented on when we discussed it on one of my YouTube conversations, and they said, and quite rightly so, it would be good if there was a specialist in this subject, a journalist that was a specialist that keeps abreast of all of the banned substances, keeps abreast of all the laws. Because as you know, law is something that can change, it can be adjusted, there can be extra parts added to it. So when somebody's having these conversations, they actually understand what they're on about, because this is so chaotic. It's almost like you're trying to pick the pieces and trying to make sense of something black and white. He failed 2 tests with a banned substance. That's not the issue. The issue is going from that to where we are today and why that has happened.
Well, I mean, look, he didn't want to lose a period of his career. He has anyway. Riyadh Al Samurai, the Daily Mail journalist, does a lot of drug stories anyway. He's very,
Right.
very good.
Okay. I'll have a look at him.
Yeah, he's you know, Riyadh's very, very good. I think he got Story of the Year anyway last year for doing this and uncovering it. I'm not a drugs expert either. But I'm not a drugs story expert either, because it's a very complicated area in terms of the drugs. But what I do know is that you can watch this case, and there have been anomalies along it, like you just pointed out, and they have come up. That's why I say it's been very poorly handled. Whatever Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn say about what the Boxing Board of Control have done, they haven't handled the case perfectly either in terms of his interests, in my view, because when the World Boxing Council came back and said, we don't accept your testimony in that 270-page document that's still not public, which I think they should make public if they can, where they looked at previous cases of clomiphene being prevalent in eggs. And there are cases with other sports people who've proven that. He then came out, like you just said, and said, no, it's not. It's nothing to do with eggs in my system. It's down to the testing process that was wrong. So that was their argument at the time. Again, if the World Boxing Council was saying, and Conor's probably being true to his feelings about it, the WBC, and I'm saying this in a kind of cynical fashion, gave him a way out.
Yeah.
But based on it's possible it could have been from eggs. So why not take that avenue? And instead of, and you have to admire him in one way.
He's adamant that he's innocent. That's why.
He's adamant that he's innocent, exactly. And he may well be, and he probably is in this case. Dr. Human, bring that evidence. This is after that, when he started working with a different PR team and Renee Carayol, you know, the inspirational kind of PR guru and speaker. Go with that evidence, put it out there, have that hearing and say, look, be transparent. Let's put it all out there. Here's my situation. I've got this evidence. I need the board to come through. There's been a lot of pressure on the Boxing Board of Control. I think it goes back all the way back to Eddie Hearn probably trying to say to the board at the very beginning, no, we're going to press ahead with this. There was talk about high court action, if you remember.
Yeah.
They could press ahead with that event on October the 8th last year, was it? For them to go ahead with the event. Huge amounts of money were lost in the promotion of the event. It was enormous. I think the O2 was sold out at the time.
Yeah.
We got to Wednesday. We got to the workouts, October Reg, if you recall, with this all going on. So
I'm going to play devil's advocate, because it all seemed to be going ahead until I think the Mail came out with the article on one day, and then immediately after the BBFC said, oh, we're prohibiting the fight, a knee-jerk reaction. And I think obviously this is where it all started to get, and I like to use this word, it started to get very, very entangled. And it's almost like everything that's been done, so you create these knee-jerk reactions based on, you feel like you're backed against a wall, so you push back. And sometimes when you're pushing back, the facts, looking at things holistically, getting a full view, sometimes gets corrupted. You mentioned about the report from this doctor to make it public. I don't think any of this should be public, just like I thought Robert Smith shouldn't have announced him not getting his license.
I think it's the opposite. I think it should all be transparent, because that's
transparent, as in the parties involved, not necessarily the public. The BBFC, Conor Benn, the doctors, WBC, all of those people. It should be transparent amongst all of those involved. And then when a decision's been made, and this is just my opinion, then, as a manager, as a promoter, say, look, this has happened, etc., instead of everything. The reason why it's such a mess, Gareth, is because everything keeps on getting leaked out, and then it's creating these knee-jerk reactions of everyone panicking. That's just my opinion.
Well, the boards, I remember Robert Smith from the Boxing Board of Control, General Secretary, telling me categorically that even though that story came out from the Mail in the morning of the Wednesday, I think it was, they'd already made the decision on the Tuesday night to pull the fight. But having said that, Eddie Hearn's argument is we were waiting 5 weeks for a decision on this. So I don't know who to believe in.
See what I mean?
I don't know
it's put out in the public. This is
that's where it all began. That's where it all started to go wrong. That's where I couldn't believe at the time that I think there was precedent for this happening. They should have had a hearing there and then that week.
I agree.
And said, let's get down to the brass tacks here. Let's get right down to the nuts and bolts. Go through it, and they should have moved quickly. But I think by that point, I think the board and Eddie Hearn were arguably at an impasse. I don't know if there was legalese being thrown around at the time, and kind of lawyers already in touch with each other. It's been a very complicated.
Very complicated.
Like I said, the most complex one that I've ever witnessed, certainly on these shores. I think America's had some complex cases with other sports, with baseball players getting. I remember speaking to Chris Mannix of DAZN about this in Sports Illustrated on one of his podcasts I did with him, and he was saying, I remember this case with baseball players years ago, a similar thing, and they were exonerated, but later on they admitted they were in the wrong. But I do tend to believe Conor. I do want to believe him as well that he hasn't done this deliberately to cheat, because having known him a long time, since he was about 16, 17, almost 10 years, I suppose, he's not someone that I believe wants to cheat. In fact, that I know him in that way. So it's all a mystery. It's a big mystery, and it's an absolute bloody mess.
And to me, I don't know Conor like that, so I'm not going to speak up and say that he's innocent, because I don't know. I'm not with him 24 hours a day. I'm not. Yeah, of course, in an ideal world, I hoped Jarrell Miller was innocent and he got to fight Anthony Joshua instead of Ruiz. I mean, history could have changed from back then, but it's like, to me, and that's just my bugbear, is that there's just a lack of professionalism in regards to the procedure. And the more that the public gets involved, the more tangled and messy it gets. They really need to just put the shutters down. All of the parties that are actually involved, the fighter, the board, the management, the doctors, everything, they're the ones that need to sit down behind those closed doors, have the hearing, do what's necessary to push it forward, because these little bits getting thrown out to us, to me, it's just making it a hell of a lot worse.
But at the very beginning, the boxing board were saying nothing. I was speaking to someone on a daily basis, but Eddie was doing interviews everywhere. We had a sit down with him where he talked us through the entire situation over lunch, about 10 of us from the national newspapers and beyond. So half of it was Chatham House rules, where we weren't. It was off record. Half of it was on record.
Okay, some of it was adapted.
Conor Benn was coming out of things. He did a Piers Morgan interview. They were,
just a right mess.
Exactly. None of it. And every time I spoke to the Boxing Board of Control, they said, no, we can't speak about anything. It's all under our lawyers. It was a very frustrating process at the time. And Robert, who I've known a long time, as I have Eddie, would and I think I've got his trust, would not tell me anything, even off the record. So all he was saying was he was just confused by the whole situation. Couldn't understand the way it was being conducted. And it's still confusing today. That's the problem.
It definitely is. Right, I'm going to go through the chat, guys. If you're in, welcome. It's the lovely Gareth, Davies, and myself. We're putting the world to rights. Gareth is educating me because I have absolutely no clue on the doping system. So you guys can comment how silly I am and why don't I know. Right, Malcolm, stop it. Eddie is not the lead of the BBFC. I get what you're saying. Christopher Anthony, good morning. Big up, Red. Let them all on the juice. Even playing
I'm not sure about that, because
but it's the sarcasm that comes out with it, and I think you might have directed that at me, but we'll see.
Big up Christopher Anthony as well.
Yeah, listen,
I tucked him in last night and wished them well. Just tucked him and give him a pat on the arm.
We can touch on that in a minute, but I've got to go through the chat. Morning, Kieran. Merry Christmas to you guys as well. Come on, even I can keep up with this. His defense is he never had it in his body in the first place. I think we've kind of covered that. And I mean, yeah, we've discussed that.
It was in his body, though.
It's a defense, but like I said, it's about obviously proving the defense and proving the defense to the licensing body, which is the BFC. Somebody's agreed. Dan from Peckham says he agrees. You're spot on. It was a WBC, JC, good morning, who said about the eggs.
Go over that, Jay.
Yeah, we've gone over that as well. Let's have a look. If Miller can get another fight, then there's hope for everyone.
He served his ban, didn't he? I remember speaking to his PR lady when he was in London for the press conference.
Yes.
And I've known Gerald a long time. I knew him when he was in kickboxing and in Glory many, many years ago, and he fought in Glory in the kickboxing show. That he was, listen, he is hopefully never going to cheat again. If he does, he'll never get in a ring. So he served his time. He's back. He's very lucky to be on that December 25th.
Very lucky.
It's a real good 50-50 fight, by the way, with Daniel Dubois as well.
Very, very lucky. I totally agree. WBC all over the gaff as usual from Christopher Anthony. JC back in again. I can see why the WBC said food contamination. The other option was about poor testing. Practice would open a can of worms. I think there would also be a number of huge lawsuits. Good comment, JC.
But Jay, one of the reasons why the WBC said food contamination as well is, yes, you're making a point there. One of the other reasons they said it was because there's precedent. I think within cycling, professional cycling, there were issues with clomiphene.
Yeah.
What was that? Happy to court on this live.
Yeah, see? Look at what you're doing, Gareth.
I had to have caught this live. Iron Stealth Mark III.
He's
you know them? Do you know Iron Stealth?
Well, like I said, the regulars that they come back and they're awesome.
They're all fans of yours.
You what? Sorry.
They're all fans of yours.
Fans of boxing. Fans of boxing. Jack is the truth. Great discussion. Nice perspectives. Yeah, and it's good because the thing is, and this is what I've said. This is why I like having Gareth as a guest. Because we get on really well, number one, but we have opposing views. So it makes for a good debate. I do not want to be
Yeah, I
sat
find
on
you
here with
exhausting. I find you exhausting. I
my
don't
husband said
really at
that.
all. We always get on very, very. You've even filmed for me for one day, which I loved.
Yeah.
Filmed
What
for me.
happened what happened with that? You put me in the bin after that. I'll see you in Saudi without me.
I didn't. Yeah, but you're. Can I talk about the focus going in and out or not?
I've sorted that now. He's gonna
Oh, good. No,
I
no, there you go.
I need
It's
a
a
new
learning
camera.
process. I'd love you to film with me more. Let me just state that here on this live right now. I know I will. We'll talk off camera. Cornell double X1. I like. Sorry, you're meant to be doing
Oh,
this.
go on. No, Gareth, come
It's
on.
a very good point from Cornell that we touched on this, didn't we? Goes back to how it was dealt at the beginning. Pride and ego. That whole push on fight week where they didn't want to pull the cards and go through the testing process, not testing, through the examination process, should have had a hearing straight away and said, look, we want to push ahead with the fight. We believe something's wrong here. If they talked,
Communication.
yeah, exactly. Pride
Iron
and
Styles
ego.
got a Iron Styles got a good question for you, and this has popped up on my Twitter. I got a bit confused. I did see it at 5 a.m. What about the new super cruiserweight division, Gareth? Your thoughts?
What's this? So we're looking at a 19th division now, aren't we, or something? Super
See,
cruiserweight. What's that? 220 plus or something?
I don't know. To me, some of the heavyweights could go into that. Then the
Well,
lighter
one of
heavyweights.
the reasons, yeah, what the excitement was that Deontay Wilder could be in that division. I think was the talk yesterday. I think it was Deontay Wilder. A new division. No, I think we need fewer divisions rather than more divisions, in my view. Even though more divisions helps another 4 or 5 guys around the world to be world champions, and it makes them earn a living.
I don't know. It makes the
No, I
sanctioning
don't.
bodies
No, no,
a
thank
good
you.
living.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Craig Burns, greetings from Australia, down south. Greetings to you. I don't know it's 24 hours ahead. So what is it? Nighttime out there now, Australia. Yeah, and it sounds like a heavyweight division 2.0. If he said good morning, I'm still waiting for the lottery numbers from you. Fewer divisions, less belts, and more champions the public actually recognize.
Is that
Common
iffy
sense.
split decision? Is that iffy split decision there?
I don't know. He said, I pronounce it. If he said, I'm sure he said if he est. I don't know. He's good. He'll let us know. Oh, he's just laughing now. He predicted a fight win based on how somebody looked, and they won the fight. And he didn't know anything about him.
Which
So I've
fight
been
was that?
asking him for it was Callum French versus Ofori. It was a next gen card that was in
Yeah.
Newcastle. I think I did a live for it, and he won money. So I've been asking him for the lottery numbers every week, and he's failed to deliver. Gareth, there's a bit of a rumor going around online, and I just want your opinion on it. Why do you think people have started to see iffy SD? People have started to doubt that Fury is going to fight Usyk. Can you tell me why this has come about? What's
The whole
happening?
time, and I think because he wakes up on different sides of the bed, doesn't he?
All right.
And John Fury gave an interview last week saying it wasn't enough time for his son to get ready for February the 17th. Carl Froch is out there today or yesterday on his Froch on Fighting saying, I think he'll pull out against Usyk on February the 17th.
What's created this, Gareth? There's no smoke without fire. What's going? Is there something going on?
Chatting shit, frankly. I think I may be proven wrong, but I don't think it will be. I don't think it will be called off on February the 17th. I think it'll go ahead. I may be wrong, but I can't see. It's this premise that because of Fury's performance against Francis Ngannou, which we've talked about till we're blue in the face, and it's created a player out of Ngannou, and it was a terrible performance by Fury by his own standards. And I spoke to Mauricio Suleiman yesterday actually about putting Ngannou in at number 10. I didn't challenge him over it. I just asked his views on it, and he explained why, which is fascinating. I just think people believe that Tyson Fury fears fighting Alexander Usyk, fears losing. He may do. He may fear losing. Who wouldn't when they're undefeated at 35 years of age? I remember Joe Calzaghe used to fear that. I just did an interview talking about that the other day, looking back on his career in 2007, 2008, his final fights against Bernard Hopkins and Roy Jones Jr. Joe psychologically had absolute fears about, not finishing his career undefeated, 40 plus fights
Right.
undefeated, of course. And I think it weighed on him. But look, they've signed for 2 fights, we understand,
Okay.
Fury and Usyk. I've got a feeling they'll draw the first one. I've just got this nagging feeling they'll draw. It'll be very close. And I think they'll have a second fight. But I just think it's chat. People say
Right.
it, and then they don't say afterwards, "Oh, I was completely wrong about that, wasn't I?" I'm happy to say I was completely wrong about Fury pulling out. I don't see him pulling out. I think John Fury often has fears about Tyson and his next fight, and he voices them. But we'll see. He's got to go into camp soon. I understand he's filming something in the Middle East at the moment. I think they're all filming stuff today in London ahead of December 23rd as well. So it's a great time. It's a great time for the heavyweight division right now. But I'm very, very excited by it at the moment.
Same. I concur. I can't even say anything to do with that. Let
Are
me
you
jump
coming
back.
out for Christmas to film me out there or not?
No, because I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why. I'm actually going to be doing a YouTube live Christmas party,
Well,
and
so
we're
you
going to
want
be
to
doing a
sit at home
watch
with all
along.
those
Yeah,
DVDs behind you,
yeah,
and those 5 men in your house or whatever it is.
yeah.
I say that meaning your
There's
beautiful
room
boy.
for more.
At home, Christmas is Christmas a big time for you at home then?
Yeah, God, of
With
course it
boys?
is. But I'd still go if I could. But I've promised the YouTube subscribers that I'm going to be doing a
Well,
watch
for the
along.
millions watching around the world on your YouTube channel on the night, I'll be camera womanless then.
Behave. I'm sure they'll be beating off your door for that opportunity, Gareth.
Eating off my door.
Yeah.
Is that what's
Anyway, Christopher, back to the chat. Christopher, what's your picks for this month's fights? Red and Gareth, apart from the Saudi card, it's Bam versus Edwards and Prograis Henry. Gareth, you go first.
I'll go first. Bam versus Edwards. Wow. Well, that's going to decide the number one in the flyweight division, obviously. Who am I to doubt Sonny Edwards? I mean, he talks the talk, he walks the walk. I think he's just going to do it against Bam, but it's going to be his biggest test. If Bam gets to him, though, it's going to be very, very interesting. No one's really put Edwards under that much pressure because he's so elusive.
He's a mover, yeah.
Yeah, he's very, very, very good. Arguably, technically, he's one of our greatest boxers in the UK right now. Go on, you go on that one. Then what do you think?
I'm going to say Bam Edwards as well. Fair enough, the Prograis Haney fight's there, but I'm more excited to see Sonny Edwards because he's gone up. I'm going to pick Sonny Edwards.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Sonny Edwards. He's gone in against a very rugged Nicaraguan. There's 2 brothers. I can't remember the name. He fought one of them. One of them's got long hair. One of them's got short hair. And Sonny fought the short-haired one. And I've watched them fight. And those fighters are demons in the ring. And Sonny Edwards came through that. So I do believe that he's got the elusiveness to outbox Bam. Yes, Bam's got the power, but I'm going to back Sonny for this one. And obviously he's British, so I'm going to back the Brit.
Do we believe that right now, though, Bam is the number one in the division before Sonny beats him?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I don't think I'm confident in the abilities of Sonny Edwards. I'm confident in... There's one thing about Sonny is his mindset. He's different. And I think in a fight like this, and a fight that he may be the slight underdog, I believe that he's got the mentality to push through it and the boxing ability to win. But that's just me. What do I know?
I just think that it's a shame the fight's not in the UK, by the way. 16th.
Yeah, I know. I know.
16th? Is it the 16th?
Yeah, but it's the global market, isn't it? It's taking on the global market. It's bringing those fights over that way, bringing a larger audience, as we know in the US. It's a massive audience, so if they can attract the eyes to the British fighters with the US audience, I think it's a really good investment. And then maybe we'll start to see some of the American fighters come over to the UK. I like the idea. I think it's strategic. I think, you've got Junaid Bostan on the card. Eddie's putting some of the new guys out there. It's giving them that bigger exposure, the larger audience. So fair play to them. I like when people take risks. I think it's a good risk to take. What's the difference between Super Cruise and Bridger? This is what I mean. To me, they're both the same.
Yeah, they are very similar. Listen, what you can't do, I think, is suddenly create two weight divisions between cruiserweight and and heavyweight. I think we're gonna. Oh, hang on, it's gone. I imagine that one of those weight divisions, Bridgerweight.
Yeah.
What you've got to remember is between light heavyweight and cruiserweight, it's like 25 pounds difference, isn't it? So
Yeah.
there is a reason for having that division there, but I'm not sure I want a super cruiserweight as well between what would be probably. I imagine it's.
There's a clear overlap.
Yeah, no, there is, but if you know from cruiserweight to heavyweight, then it's obviously anything, isn't it? Anything 200 pounds plus. But the thing is, Ali, I think, fought his best at about 215 pounds.
Okay.
6'3". I mean, look at the shape he was. He was amazing. Alexander Usyk is very similar size and weight. From the Klitschko's and Lennox Lewis onwards, it was the super heavyweights, guys that were 230, 240 pounds. It's normal now for guys 250 as well. So they limit heavyweight in UFC or MMA to 265 pounds, remember.
Okay.
So beyond that, you've got to be 265 pounds. But I don't know. I mean, listen, there's always scope for change. If it works for the divisions, fine. God didn't design from atom weight to heavyweight, did he? It's developed down the time, down the ages, and if there are enough guys in those divisions, then let's do it. Can we do Haney and Prograis, by the way? Because that, for me, that's
yeah.
Right. I think Haney will prove just how brilliantly elusive he is in this fight. I think he'll just pit Prograis, but I think Regis will Rougarou, the ghost from the Bayou, will really test him. But I think this is going to be the moment where Haney proves he's absolutely brilliant. But I'm really, really looking forward to the fight. I really wish I was going to be there live.
Who do you feel as a more respected boxing record, Fury or AJ? This is where the criticism for Fury stems from, as we feel he hasn't fought enough credible opponents, and that's from our iffy. Still not right.
Well, obviously the three Wilder fights are enormous, and the victory over Klitschko are enormous for Tyson Fury. Look, Klitschko had reigned as the heavyweight champion for 9.5 years. It was an incredible victory that night in Dusseldorf in 2015. 9 years it's going to be next year. Wow. But those are the notable victories. Dillian Whyte, I think you have to count that as a notable victory as well. Fury handled him so easily. The three wins over Derek Chisora, people tend to discount now. And outside that, let's see what Otto Wallin does against Anthony Joshua.
Interesting point.
That decision as well. But I do agree that I've got Anthony Joshua's record up here. The win over Dillian Whyte, Charles Martin, Dominic Brazil, Eric Molina, Vladimir Klitschko, his best victory in my view. Takam, Joseph Parker, Alexander Povetkin, the return win against Andy Ruiz, Kubrat Pulev, and then the two losses to Alexander Usyk. Look, I will not disagree that Anthony Joshua has fought more of the guys in the top 10 in the different weight divisions. But over the last 5 years, there have been 5 significant fights in the heavyweight division. 2 with Alexander, the most important fights: Alexander Usyk against Anthony Joshua twice, and Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder 3 times. And I still think it doesn't matter when you look at the resume. I still think Tyson Fury is the number 1 in the heavyweight division. He needs to prove it now against Alexander Usyk, and if that fight goes ahead, it doesn't matter who Anthony Joshua has fought. He's lost twice to Usyk, and it kind of means that Fury doesn't need to fight Joshua, even though I'd love to see that fight if Joshua keeps winning.
If hypothetically, to me, if and he hasn't, but if AJ still had the belts, I'd say that he is number 1 in the division. I would say that his resume is more attractive than Tyson Fury's. If you go back over the span, how many years, not in regards to the last couple of years, last 5 years that you've done.
Last 5. He's lost 3, won 4, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Since
so
2019.
Yeah, but I to me, overall, I'd say that AJ's got the better resume, but you can't argue with Tyson Fury. To me, he's number 2. Alexander is number 1 in my eyes, until Fury, which I do believe that he can win that fight, and then 100%.
You put Fury at number 2.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe that. What's Usyk done?
What's Usyk done?
He's beaten Joshua.
He's took all of the belts off. You remember, he was elevated from cruiserweight as a super champion.
Yeah.
So he sort of jumped straight into the deep end of the heavyweights. He's got all of the belts, and that's how I'm judging it. I'm judging it on the belt factor. I'm judging it on, his clean record. I'm judging him on beating the two-time world heavyweight champion twice, and now he's going in against Fury, who are backed to beat Usyk. However, I still think it's Usyk, Fury, AJ.
I don't agree. I think it's.
No, you don't have to. It's just my opinion.
No. I'm feeling bad. I towards you for it. No, I think I put. I still think Wilder would beat Usyk as well. So I've got Fury, Wilder, Usyk, Joshua in that order. I think Wilder's the number 2 heavyweight in the world,
and that's based on fights that he hasn't had yet. You'd put
Wilder
up that high.
I think Wilder beats Usyk.
See, and that's why it's.
It might be ahead. It might be Usyk might be ahead after 9 rounds, but I think eventually Wilder will get to him.
Yeah, I think, and it's subjective, and it depends what you judge it on, and we've clearly both judged it on different things.
I may be completely wrong. Joshua may go in the ring with Fury eventually and beat him. Usyk may beat Fury. Fury may be, Yeah.
EJ Boxing Live, shout out to him. EJ, if you guys don't know, was one of them that sorted out a lot of my very first, when you was doing Zoom in lockdown.
Yes.
He was the one that put me onto a lot of people to get them onto my channel. So he was kind of there at the beginning, the resurrection of October Red. So a massive salute and thank you to EJ. Morning Red, can you ask Gareth if he's on good talking terms with Tyson Fury and how he feels about Frank Warren bully TalkSport on Fury? Feel about Frank Warren bullying TalkSport on Fury?
Well,
is he on about the Jack Catterall thing? Not Jack Catterall, Adam Catterall.
Yeah. Sorry, just 1 second. Right. Well, this is. I've been asked by TalkSport not to get too involved in this myself.
Fair enough.
I'm happy to say a couple of things. Well, one is, yes, I'm on talking terms with Tyson Fury. I think there were a couple of shows that colleagues said things about him that I didn't agree with anyway. I never thought he was ducking anyone in the heavyweight division anyway, and I've been consistent about that. For me, it was all about timing, money, and ego. which I've said all along, those 3 words, which is way the heavyweight division plays out. I talk to lots of people behind the scenes, and if I get it wrong marginally, people tend to call me from behind the scenes and say, no, it's this that's happening. You know, I've known Frank Warren, George Warren, Bob Arum, Todd DeBuff, Brad Jacobs, Eddie Hearn, Frank. So I've known all these guys a long time. Shelley Finkel. So it's not difficult for me to pick up the phone and speak to these guys and them explain in the background. And I'm not just believing what they're saying. I'll tie it with what someone else is saying on the other side. I never thought that Anthony Joshua was going to take the fight with Tyson Fury last December, regardless of what Tyson Fury was putting out.
Because
he was just never going to take it. It didn't make sense. Just didn't. That was my.
You mean coming off the losses to come off the back-to-back losses to take the Tyson Fury
last
fight?
December that was being mooted for a while between Fury and. I'd love to see Fury and Joshua. I think the build-up, you know, it's a bit like I'd love to have seen Ricky Hatton and Amir Khan all those years ago because of what it would have done for British boxing. Much like I'd like to see Conor Benn and Chris Eubank, even though it's a mismatch. In my view, at middleweight, I do think it's a mismatch in terms of weight to a reason, and Conor Benn hasn't fought at world level yet. On what as regards, I mean, I had to sit through half an hour with Adam Catterall and Frank Warren going over it last weekend in the studio.
Yeah.
After the week before, where I wasn't on the show, Adam getting stopped by Frank and him. I think that's what he's referring to. Feel about Frank Warren.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, I just think he's giving his view. I mean, Frank's a very passionate person when he's upended. And he and I have fallouts as well over things. But I mean, he's the promoter. I'm an observer on the sport. I'm not the one making decisions that are being made in the sport. Yes, I've been involved a long time and have a voice in the sport. But at the end of the day, I don't see it as I might have a viewpoint on something, but if they want to put on Fury against Chisora and that's what they've got available and that's what they want to do. If they want to ask my opinion and I say, yeah, do Fury versus Ngannou if you want, fine with me. I won't call it an exhibition. I never called it an exhibition. I don't believe it was an exhibition. And look what happened. I think I've been consistent the whole way along. I think there's some very strong views about the pathway of Tyson Fury. I think I'm a journalist on the sport, not a fan speaking for the fans.
I get it.
I'm not even a fan. I'm not a fan. It's my job. I do this as a job. I'm not a fan. Yeah. Obviously, we want to see the best fight the best, but there's an algorithm in the fight world where the very biggest fights don't get made immediately. I've been through it too many times. It's just the way boxing works.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a world's governing body. There's the sanctioning bodies aren't in statutes. They're self-created. It's a business as much as it is a sport. It's a very complex, nuanced sport, and there aren't simple answers. I agree with Frank Warren that this Fury-Usyk fight has been made relatively quickly. I've been speaking to Frank the entire way through this process. If they could have been putting Tyson Fury in with Deontay Wilder again, maybe not Deontay Wilder, but with Alexander Usyk or with Anthony Joshua sooner, they would have. But everybody's been waiting for the big payday with the Saudi Arabian money coming. That for me has been in the background the entire time, and I've been consistent with it. I think there are certain people who are hammering Fury. I think he's amazing for the sport. I know I get called a Fury fanboy. Fury's made his own mistakes down time. We'll miss him when he's gone. Believe me, we'll miss him when he's gone. Like we'll miss Joshua. Like we'll miss Frank Warren. There's a lot of passion and a lot of opinion in fight sports. What I'm not going to do, I might present with certain people, but if I don't agree with their viewpoints, because a lot of people have said, why aren't you defending Adam with Frank? Frank's just got a point of view. Frank hammers me, but we don't do it in public. I'll hammer him back. We don't do it in public. That's not the way I am. Because we're more prominent these days, because of social media and those kind of things, I am a bit more of, believe it or not, an old school journalist where I don't really want to make myself the story, if I can help it. But if I have to give strong opinions on things, I will. But the heavyweight division is a very, very complex playground, if you like, business playground. And all I'll say is, I said all along, this will play out and they will all fight each other eventually. And if they don't, it'll be a travesty to the era. And I think we will see everyone fight everyone else. Although what I will say is, I don't know after this December 23rd card whether we will see Anthony Joshua against Deontay Wilder straight away if they both win. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, because there's a potential of, I think, is it Jan Hrgović, apparently belts, going back out into the ether after Usyk and Fury fight, and then they're possibly going to position mandatories or, get people into the right position to go for that belt. So I'm hearing possibly Joshua Hrgović when you look at it from a strategic standpoint, but the fan standpoint, the money fight is definitely Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. And now that there's Team Saudi, they've got the money. Can they possibly pull strings and say to Philip, look, we know that you'd love a world title shot, but there's a few bags of gold. Do you want to just stand over there for a bit so we can make Joshua Wilder?
Maybe, but we don't know yet. We've got February the 17th.
Yeah, we've got a few dates.
Yeah. Wilder and Joshua could both lose against Parker and Wallin. It's not beyond the bounds.
Yeah, it's not written, is it? It's not written.
I think if Joshua lets Wallin into the fight and he's there after 6-7 rounds and he's having success with his awkward southpaw style and his confidence, we may have question marks about Anthony Joshua against Wilder. I mean, I think it's a very dangerous fight for him. It's an end game fight. And I think his promoter, if I was his promoter, I'd want to keep him alive and winning. I mean, alive.
I know what you mean.
Keep him winning until Fury and Usyk has played out, because I'd still want to do Fury and Joshua if I was in the promotional team. So if Wilder wanted to go and fight Ngannou, for example, I'd let Wilder go and fight Ngannou. Flip Hrgović is not an easy fight for Joshua either. He's an easy fight for the Joshua. He's an easier fight for the Joshua. That he's an easy fight for Joshua up to fight 17 of Joshua's career.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have said the same with Otto Wallin, but that was the Joshua that came out and he let his hands go and he was like violent and he was tenacious. He's a different boxer now. He's behind a long jab now, isn't he? And he patiently works his way into a fight. He's frustrated at his own boxing ability. Ben Davison's very good for him, though, in my view.
Yeah, I like Ben Davison. I also like Derek James. I also like Angel Fernandez, and I also like Rob McCracken.
Well, you like everybody then, don't you?
Yeah, well, the thing is, in life, I'm a strong believer of sometimes you've got to realize that it's you that's the problem, not everybody else. So I wish him all the best under the tutelage of Ben Davison. Anthony Joshua has got more than enough tools to win any fight. He's a phenomenal fighter. His aggression, his combination punches, his excitement, everything that he stood for. He's probably one of the reasons why I've got October Red now. Influential, all of that. But the trainer hopping, whoever it's with, makes me very, very nervous. It just makes me nervous, Gareth.
Well,
I'm not going to lie.
I can say don't be nervous.
Yeah.
But when boxers have great power, but they're also vulnerable, it's really exciting to watch them box. Can I just say it's 11:15? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're rattling on. All right, then. It's 11:15, even though Gareth was late, but he was late because I forgot to send him the link. So I'm going to take some blame for that because I can do that. I can take personal responsibility.
It's all showbiz.
But listen, guys in the chat, sorry if I didn't get through everyone's comments, etc. But we've been going
You did
for
get
an
through everyone.
hour.
I think you did
Well,
get
we got through most. Until the next time, remember tomorrow night we're doing a live watch along for the Matchroom card over in Belfast. So get back over here from 8 p.m. tomorrow night. I hope to see you all there.
And I'm live on Talk Sport tomorrow night, 10 till 1 as well, on a rival platform.
Are we clashing? Are we clashing?
We're clashing. I'm on Talk Sport 10 till 1, me and Spencer Oliver, and we'll be covering Belfast as well. And we've also got interviews with MMA fighters and all sorts.
All right. I haven't got interviews with anybody, thanks.
And it'll be podcasted later on, but...
He's pulling rank here. He's saying, look, I'm the dog's body.
What I was about to say was you can always simulcast. Simulcast. You can have October on your computer screen and Talk Sport on your phone. I mean, you know, we are in competition, but we're also not. Everything you do and I do will also be podcasted as well. So there we go.
There we go. And on that note, guys, you know what we say at October Red? Stay ready. End stream now. End stream.